The gospel lesson today is from the Gospel of Luke. We are in chapter 1, verses 68 through 79. This is under the heading of Zechariah's Song. Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, because he has come and has redeemed his people. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. As he said through his holy prophets of long ago, salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore to our father Abraham, to rescue us from the hand of our enemies and to enable us to serve him without fear in holiness and righteousness before him all our days. And you, my child, will be called a prophet of the Most High, for you will go on before the Lord to prepare the way for him, to give his people the knowledge of salvation through the forgiveness of their sins, because of the tender mercy of our God, by which the rising sun will come to us from heaven, to shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the path of peace. This is the reading of the word of our Lord. You may be seated. I entitled today's message, The Path to Peace, and it's really, we're working our way through the 23rd Psalm today. So we did the 23rd Psalm as our Psalter reading today. And I have a different version here. It's from the Contemporary English version. There's a really awesome website on the computer where you can pull up all these different versions and look at them side by side, and it's pretty fun to be able to see lots of different translations, because sometimes just looking at the different translations help you have a better understanding of the intent behind the verse, at least for us for that day. And this one, the 23rd Psalm, is written this way: You, Lord, are my shepherd. I will never be in need. You let me rest in fields of green grass. You lead me to streams of peaceful water, and you refresh my life. You are true to your name, and you lead me along the right paths. I may walk through valleys as dark as death, but I won't be afraid. You are with me, and your shepherd's rod makes me feel safe. You treat me to a feast while my enemies watch. You honor me as your guest, and you fill my cup until it overflows. Your kindness and love will always be with me each day of my life, and I will live forever in your house, Lord.
If your church has been around long enough, they've probably got one of these hanging on the wall somewhere. It's a painting of a shepherd and a sheep. Well, lots of sheep. Beautiful green pastures, still waters. It's quiet, it's peaceful. It's all of that. But have you ever tried to steer a sheep? All right, time for dinner. Come back. No, it's okay. You guys, wait. We're friends. Why do you run? Hey, don't get smart aleck with me, all right? All right, someone's getting the shears. And if I'm to be honest, sheep, they're dumb. I don't know if you've heard, no, they're just not as smart as other animals. No, they're dumb. Like walk off a cliff just because it's there, dumb. All right, do you want me to take you out to pasture? Because I will take you out to pasture. no, come back! Karen! No, Karen! Over here! Over here! Karen! Goodness gracious, they're just stubborn. Skittish, too. They're for little things. Oh, don't be like that. Do you want me to get the shepherd's hook? Do you want me to get the shepherd's hook? Hey, I'm the one that feeds you. Hey! Don't ignore me. I think I get kids ministry now. Fine. I love you. You ever wondered why Jesus called us a sheep? Kind of a bitter pill to swallow, huh? But if we were to closely examine our lives, look at all the messes that we make, how fearful we are, how fickle and wayward we can, well, if I can just put it bluntly, how dumb we can be. We are sheep. Yeah, sheep. That's about right. But thankfully, God sent us a good shepherd, someone who will be gentle with us when we are far from home, someone who will be firm when he needs to be. Doesn't it say everything that God picked shepherds to send the good news of Jesus' birth? And that right there should remind us of his shepherding ways right off the bat. That first Christmas, it was a sign of peace with God for all eternity. And our shepherd, he paid the price for that peace. The highest price. I don't know about you, but this Christmas, it means so much to me that I have a good shepherd.
It just doesn't want to behave, does it? That is so weird. I think we got it. So we have peace because of the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd. Without the Good Shepherd, we don't have peace. In John 10, Jesus says, by the way, any of you familiar with sheep? Have you worked with sheep at all? No? Yeah, I don't think it's easy, actually. I think it's kind of hard. It takes a shepherd with some extremely good skills and who's willing to put himself out for the sheep. John 10, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. It takes a lot of dedication to be a shepherd, at least to be a good shepherd, like the shepherd that Jesus is. So just to be clear, who are the sheep? Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? I'm sorry to have to say this, but sheep have a reputation for not being very bright. You know that? As a card-carrying sheep myself, I may resemble that remark. We make some bad decisions, don't we? We do some silly stuff. We walk away from the herd and get lost for a while. And a good shepherd's always there, always looking for us, always willing to bring us back. And that is where our peace comes from, in knowing that we have a good shepherd. The psalmist says, and this is a psalm of David, the 23rd psalm, says, I will never be in need. In fact, I am so worry-free that I can just rest in peace. That's what the psalmist says. Those green pastures, it's a place to lie down. It's a place to find rest when you're weary. And you don't need to be afraid of the wolf or anyone else because you are safe. All of your needs are taken care of. You can eat, graze in that pasture. You can drink from that beautiful, safe, quiet stream. And you can sleep in absolute peace. Now, most of us have trust issues of one kind or another, right? I do. Now, pastors of all people shouldn't have trust issues. But I have trust issues. One of the problems with being a pastor and living in parsonages for almost 30 years is that when you retire, you have no place to live. Yeah. It's a little scary. Kind of scary that you don't have a place to live. And you got to think about that because it's a walloping big expense right when you retire, and that's the last time, that you want a walloping big expense is when you retire. So in 2013, Rhonda and I bought a house, a rundown fixer-upper, because that's what we could afford. We bought it in limestone, and we lived in Indiana. Now, I figured I would come back here summers and do my best to make the house livable so that we would have a place to go when we retired. And about that same time, my mother was diagnosed with a fatal disease, and in fact, she only lived a few more months after we closed on the house. We didn't tell anybody we bought a house. My parents didn't know that. Nobody knew that we had bought the house in limestone. When my mother died, I said to Rhonda, maybe we could get a church in the county. Our plan had been when we retired, we would move back here into the house. So I contacted the district superintendent and said, is there any possibility of getting a church? And I received this really warm letter in response, and I was appointed almost immediately to a church in Presque Isle. Just something we never dreamt of. And so about 2 months after my mother died, we moved to the county. Now here was the problem. We had planned to move to the county when we retired. The church that we moved to was supposed to pay for our moving expenses, all right? But because we lived in Indiana instead of already in the conference, they would only pay from where we crossed the line into the conference which was about halfway, about half of the distance from where we lived to where we were going in Presque Isle. So I was told to get some estimates from moving companies. And so I got estimates from moving companies. They ranged from $18,000 to $23,000 to move us. That was 10 years ago, from Indiana to the county. I just was shocked. And I thought, $18,000 on top of buying a house when I retire? It's going to cost me $18,000 to move, That's crazy. And so I started looking for a different way to do it. We had a man in our congregation in Indiana who owned a semi-truck. And I said, can you move me? And what would it cost? And he said, he quoted $6,500. He would move us here for $6,500. Well, half of that cost for me was $3,250, you know. Half of that cost for the church I was going to was $3,250. He got practically the whole church to turn out, and they filled that semi-truck right to the doors. And when he got here, he said, you know, 6,000 would be enough. And the church I was coming to said, 6,000 sounds reasonable to us. We'll pay the whole price. Now imagine if we had moved here after I retired and I had to bear the 100% of that expense, and in the end I had to bear none of it, and we were here where we wanted to be. The psalmist says that we will never, ever be in need. How amazing is that? Because I had no plan. I had no understanding of the issues, and God took care of everything, and a whole lot of generous people as well. Luke 11:9 says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. The second reason that we find peace in our Good Shepherd is that he guides us. He leads me through difficult circumstances. I mean, it's called that valley of the shadow of death, but really it's really difficult challenge that we go through in our life. He guides me. And how does he guide me? He guides me with the rod and with the staff. And does that make sense? The psalmist says we find comfort in the rod and the staff. You know how the rod and staff are used? Yeah, that's how you move the sheep. They don't just follow you necessarily, although sometimes they do. To get them to move, you've got to use some force sometimes to get them to move in the direction. That's what the rod and the staff are used for. And I wouldn't find that comfortable, would you? No, and yet the psalmist says that the rod and the staff comfort me. When I was a kid, we had a paddle that my dad made. It was about this wide and about that long, and he made it out of 3/4-inch plywood, and it had a really comfortable handle on the end of it, and he drilled holes in it, and he wrote all 4 names of us kids on this paddle. And then that paddle hung on a nail in a very prominent place in our house where you couldn't really forget about it. You know, you knew it existed. Yeah. Now, I know paddles aren't politically correct anymore. You know, we don't strike our children, and I don't want to even go there. But you know what? It's kind of like the rod and the staff. And if the rod and the staff can be comforting, do you think that I found any comfort in the paddle? If you asked me at the time, I would say no. But as an adult, I realize how many kids in our neighborhood grew up without any supervision. They were out at midnight. The parents didn't know where they were, didn't care where they were. There's something about that paddle and about that rod and the staff that helped me to understand I'm loved because my parents are there. They care about what happens to me. I don't think I ever had an event that my parents didn't show up for. They were there at absolutely everything that I ever did. They were there supporting me. And if I did it wrong, they were there correcting me, guiding me, if you will. And you know what? I think it was appropriate. So John 16:33 says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Jesus didn't promise to take our troubles away. He promised to guide us through them as he guides us through the valley of the shadow of death. And the final one is, thou art with me. We find peace in the Good Shepherd because he's always with us. Matthew 1:23, the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel. And the scripture says immediately following that, which means God with us. Emmanuel. My first date with Rhonda, took her to dinner and a movie. Rhonda already knows that she's the subject of many sermon illustrations, and she's kind of given up, arguing about that. So I'm not too concerned. But dinner and a movie, because to me, date means dinner and movie. It just made sense to me. So I took her to Olive Garden and ordered calamari as an appetizer. And I didn't know yet that Rhonda has this incredibly sensitive palate, I didn't really understand. And she was really being nice about it then, She didn't say, calamari. Well, she did say, what's that? She did say that. But at any rate, in fact, from the restaurant to the movie, she had to call one of her children, may have been Shelley, I don't know, and say, you can't believe I just had calamari. So we go to the movie, and it was nice, and after the movie, I learned something else about Rhonda. Rhonda doesn't go to the movies. Yeah. In fact, Rhonda told me a story about her grandmother, and her grandmother told her, when Jesus comes back, you think he's going to go in there looking for you? So dinner and a movie may not have been the best first date. I don't know. But the answer to the question that Rhonda's grandmother posed was, yeah. It's even more powerful than that. When you are in that theater or anywhere else, God doesn't have to look for you. He already knows where you are because he is with you. He's with you all the time, not looking for you. He'll find us wherever we are because he doesn't have to look. He's always, always with us. If we want peace in our lives, we only have to trust the Good Shepherd. Ask, seek, knock. Jesus even rounds up the strays, the wanderers from the herd, because he is a good shepherd. God bless.